Exciting day here on Welcome to Our Community as I introduce Adrienne McCollar and Dr. Patrick Novotny here with the Equal Justice Initiative. Thank you all so much for coming over today.
Thank you so much for having us, Don. We appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely.
Going back to what Brian Stevenson's vision is, he started this work. He's an attorney. He's fighting for, folks that are on death row, for, folks that have been sentenced harshly. And what he realized is that, disproportionately, poor folks, black and brown folks, were getting a different kind of justice. And so that's where this started, so that he could help the public to understand what's led us to where we are today with all these disproportionate outcomes. And so so that's just a big part of the work. And going back and piggybacking off of what Patrick said is that out of that, though, look at where we are today. Like, we're sitting here today. So we also are leaning into all of the good work that's happened in order to turn the page, or try to turn the page from this truth, this very hard history that we're grappling with.
Even in the 1920s, right, in Statesboro at what is Georgia Southern today, on our campus, we had leaders not long after this period of these terrible, tragic events, the lynchings and the violence and the terror that was experienced by so many in Bullitt County in that time that we've worked on. We had in the 1920s and the 30s leaders like Guy Wells and President Marvin Pittman of Georgia Southern, who brought leaders like George Washington Carver from the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, and brought onto our campus local leaders like William James. And so, very quietly in the 1920s and the 1930s, there are very quiet efforts to begin to let educators, African American, white educators, on our campus, long before the university is integrated with students and faculty learning from each other, which is what a university is all about. So, even very close to the moment of some of these awful events in 1904 and in as late as 1914, not long after, there were efforts that we should be incredibly proud of.
And that was just so brave of them during those times, because we often, read in the history books about, we hear about the black people who were lynched, and many times, of course, that's not documented. But we also hear about those real heroes who were not black, who saw that something was wrong, and they fought to try to change this nation into the nation that we are in today.
And that's part of it, is all of the courageous acts that came, as a result. And so I think, again, what President Marvin Pittman was doing and trying to do and be ahead of the curve and doing, and others in our community, even, bringing what we know, what we call today as Georgia Southern, lobbying to have that come and be a part of our community. It was an effort, again, to turn the page and to be known for something else. And this history isn't unique to Bullitt County, right? It's just that we're doing the work of radical truth telling, and we want the landscape, the markers in our community to reflect the truth, because our markers tell a story. And so we want that to be reflective of the truth. So that we can, go courageously, into a better future.
Well, you all, speak of the markers, but there are the markers and so many other things that you all have done so far through this project. Remind everybody of what may be right there in the Statesboro area now that people may drive past or walk past every day, and they don't realize the significance of it.
That's so true. I mean, the more that we got into the project with the markers, I realized this is for folks who are coming to the community for the first time, who are moving here, who are traveling through. There are so many of us locally that know the story, but just because we know the story, someone who's driving through, someone who's visiting, and I've had moments, and we've shared some of these moments together where I've talked about coming up and seeing people reading the marker in front of the Statesboro City Hall, and they're learning that history, and you can just see them talking, and just to walk up and just kind of come up and say, do you have any questions, right? Can I tell you a little bit about how this marker came about, and look at the City Hall and think of that evening that you and I were a part of. We had a unanimous vote by our Statesboro City
right.
Council, and the support of our city staff, and the weeks and months of emails, and to get that marker into place in that location. But it's worth all the effort when you see someone learning about our community, and they're reading about the formation of Georgia Southern. We have 2 markers in front of our City Hall, one that tells the story of the founding of Georgia Southern, and then the marker that tells this very painful but very important part of our history. And so
coming up, cute dogs